let's talk about the music that you were into growing up. It seems like you were into a lot of aggressive, like angry music.
Still am.
Still to this day.
Yeah.
And I want to know, where does that come from? Why are you into that type of music?
I don't know, man. It's always what spoke to me. You know,
Yeah.
I've always been attracted to the darker side of stuff in life and in music. I think because of my really key development days, punk rock was really, in the late 70s, was really a big thing. And then in the early 80s in my neighborhood, hip-hop rap music became a really big thing.
So you were into like the gangster angry rap? Or
No, pre-gangster. So I was into
Okay.
Public Enemy.
Okay.
Right? And I like gangster rap. I really liked the first couple of years of it.
Right.
You know, but then I just kind of got stupid.
Yeah.
They became studio gangsters, right?
Right.
Guys were just hard in the studio. And as much as I love Tupac, and I think Tupac is a beautiful rhymer and was a beautiful, beautiful rapper, he was kind of bullshit, right? He was an art student who was East Coast, and then he was West Coast, and he was it was like he was in juice, and then never let go of that character.
Right.
Like he just continued to be that guy from the movie, right? So Tupac to me is like a great rapper, but was the beginning of the studio gangsters. Maybe because as I was getting older, I thought it's not enough to be angry. It's not enough to tell me what your life was like. You have to offer me something else, which is what Public Enemy was so good at today.
Right.
Here's how bad it is. Here's what it could be. And that's just a personal choice.
An artist that I listen to a lot, his name's T.I., he's a rapper.
Yeah.
And T.I. was recently in prison. So when he got released, his record label told him that he was not allowed to release certain types of music anymore or record those types of music because they want to focus on his positive image.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening is he got out of prison and his sound completely changed.
Yeah.
So a lot of listeners were like, what's going on? You know what I mean? So what I want to ask you is, for a band that you love and you're a fan of, knowing that they're being affected by hands going in their music and changing it up, what do you think about that? What does that do to your favorite band?
Well, it depends, right? It depends on how the artist starts.
Right.
And I say this as a guy who grew up listening to lots of it, most pop and mainstream hip hop bands and mainstream rock bands, right, are managed from the start. So T.I. can't complain about hands in his business now when that's how his career was built.
Right.
Like, it's fabricated, man. He doesn't make those beats. You know, like it's and your lyrics, like what do you rap about? What's your deal with the label? What are you selling? So if he is a product, which is what he is, he's not Michael Franti. Right, where he's about something. Michael Franti's about something. Michael Franti's music changes, you know, his styles change and all that, but Michael Franti's message has always been legit. From Disposable Heroes of Hip Hopocracy on, he's the guy. So if Hands came in and made him mess around, it would be like, that's a sellout.
Right.
But it's like, T.I., what do you rap about? And why are you a rapper? What kind of music do you make?
Right.
You make money. You rap about making money too, right? So if that's what you're about, then the people who are making money with you are saying, you got to make more money, because that's the contract you made with the audience.
And it's a cycle, and
it's
it goes
a cycle.
on. Right.
So don't complain when they don't like the shit that they're making you do, because you were doing that from the beginning. Like Lil Jon's the other way.
Yeah.
Lil Jon, when he became famous, that's who he was.
Yeah.
Lil Jon was in control of his message from the beginning.
Right.
And they kind of latched on to Lil Jon.
Right.
T.I. didn't change the business. You know, like T.I. they didn't latch on to T.I. They helped make T.I. who he is.
What about artists that, I think maybe hip hop is different because once you get right into that cycle, it just pretty much stays on that commercial level. But what about artists that start off as indie rock bands and then they get signed and then their style changes?
Well, and dude, the audience turns on them.
Right.
Oh yeah, the audience is hard on them. The Goo Goo Dolls are a great example of this.
Right.
The Goo Goo Dolls used to be an excellent punk rock band. I remember listening to the Goo Goo Dolls. They have a song called "Sunshine of Your Love." If you can find it online, it's harder to find now.
Yeah.
Where they covered a classic rock track. They were a heavy band,
Yeah.
and then they came out with this record that was some soft ass whatever. They gained a whole new audience, but they lost a whole bunch. Metallica went through it. Metallica were the biggest band in the world without radio.
Yeah.
They had no radio. They had no videos. They sold out Maple Leaf Gardens, man. They sold 18,000 people. Imagine that. No radio.
Yeah.
Massive. And then they changed. And people, I jumped off the Metallica bandwagon. I didn't get back on the Metallica bandwagon for 14 years.
Right.
And they were gods to me. Like, and it happens in every genre of music. Because they make a deal with you in the beginning. Here's what we are. Now, it's not that I don't want them to change. Not that I won't let them evolve. I don't even believe in the term selling out. Because selling out is just too catch-all, right? Selling out is what Liz Phair did.
Yeah.
Right? When we try to capitalize on a certain market. Selling out is what the Black Eyed Peas did. But it's not bad. It just is what it is.
Right.
Artists should be allowed to grow and should be allowed to evolve. However, so should my ears.
Yeah.
I buy records based on what I want to listen to.
Right.
If I'm no longer on this train, I'm no longer on this train.
Right.
I'm going to get on that train.
One of the things that I find interesting is usually what I've noticed is when you are talking about hip hop or you're interviewing somebody about hip hop, you usually reference the Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
And you know, I've noticed that in a couple of interviews, and we've had this conversation, you seem to really, you know, be impressed with what they were able to accomplish as a band.
Yeah.
So why don't you talk to me a little bit about what the Beastie Boys mean to you, and I guess what's the genius behind them for you?
I think they always put out great records. They always. I think we'll had one record maybe two records that haven't been, I think, really up to par, but everything else has been magical. I also think these records are huge. Licensed to Ill changed everything. I mean, you think about it, it wasn't until Eminem came along that somebody beat them in terms of total sales for a rap record. That's massive, right? So but it also changed the game, right? And that it introduced hip hop to a whole new group of people. It was the three MCs going with rock and roll loops in the background, which was a new thing. Then they come out with Paul's Boutique, which is the big follow-up, except Paul's Boutique doesn't really gain any traction because it wasn't what it was like the first record, because they were starting to get a little bit smarter. This record was really appreciated 5 years later.
Okay.
You know, another complete game changer. The Dust Brothers and all that, that's Paul's Boutique.
Right.
The stuff they were able to pull up. Then in the early 90s, when rock and roll and hip-hop started to mix a little bit, the Judgment Night soundtrack came out, which was a really big record for both of them coming together, and the Lollapalooza generation showed up. The Beastie Boys come out with that song, Switch What You Want Off Check Your Head, and Check Your Head was another record that was able to do both. What I loved about the Beastie Boys was the real essence of hip hop to me is fearless music.
Right.
Fearless in what you say, fearless in how you say it. And as everybody became more narrow and more just not that smart in most pop music, the Beastie Boys got braver. They were way more fearless, man. And like if you listen to that new Beastie Boys record, they do what other bands won't do. Plus, you cannot deny that if you're talking about what hip hop is, you know, and the almighty of hip hop, the Beastie Boys are one of those bands.
I know you've spoken about this openly many times. You grew up in a religious home. Your mom is very religious. Do you think that maybe the reason you like that aggressive music is in a type of rebellion against what you grew up with?
I don't know. It's a good question. I think it was more that for whatever reason in my personality, I was slightly adversarial. So I just knew that rap and the punk and the heavy metal that I listened to, most people didn't like it. Or whatever people didn't like, I didn't join the masses and go, I don't like that too. I was attracted. What is that? Why don't you like it?
Yeah.
You know, my mom hated all the music I listened to. Like no matter what, she hated when I listened to Led Zeppelin, right? And that's not even that aggressive. I'll tell you, I remember the day I brought home an Ice-T record. I think I was listening to Power at home, and I played it. I had to be careful what I played at home as a teenager, because if she was home, she would freak out over the lyrics. She came home one day and just freaked out because she'd been home for like 20 minutes and I didn't know.
Yeah.
And she was just listening to Ice-T go on and on and on. Oh God, I got in so much trouble for that.
I have a story for you. Check this out. So I grew up in a family that was also somewhat religious. My parents didn't really get religious until later on in their life. So for as long as I can remember, the reason why I love music today is because of my father. He was the type of guy, he would wake up early on the weekend, and his whole time off is to wake up and listen to his music with his headphones on, not disturb anybody.
Records?
Yeah, everything. Recently, I remember I went to my parents' house to visit, and where he kept all his music, it was gone.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's weird. So I'm like, Dad, where's the whole collection? He's just like, gave me a weird look, and he said it's gone. I'm talking about hundreds of records.
What do you do with them?
So he told me he threw them away because he was going through a religious stage.
Oh.
And he didn't want worldly music around him.
Oh my God.
So I'm talking about records, everything from the Beatles and Rolling Stones to Miles Davis to
that
everything.
Breaks my heart. To me, that's a sacrilege.
Right?
To throw that stuff away.
So what I'm trying to get to is when that happened, it kind of to me was something like that's the person that I idolize, and I've seen, like, I am who I am because of them. Have you ever had a moment with someone that you've idolized, whether you're interviewing them or just you figured out a little bit more about them and you realize, I was comfortable knowing them before I actually got to know them?
Yeah. It's when I interviewed some guys that I grew up listening to, which was very weird for me.
Yeah.
And the experience was good, but it was the lead up to it where I wasn't sure. Like when I had the first interview Robert Plant, or the first time, or the only time I interviewed Joe Strummer, in the lead up to meeting these guys, I'm a little bit like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this, because
he means so much more to you.
So much more to you.
That's
when,
right.
You know, when Led Zeppelin, when Robert Plant was down here, Bob Makowitz, who you know was here, Bob refused to come meet him.
Is that right?
Yeah, he refused. He was in the building.
Yeah.
He knew I could have introduced. He couldn't do it because Robert Plant meant so much.
He didn't want to take the risk of
Don't
ruining
take the risk. I don't blame him. I did that with Neil Young. I had a chance to meet Neil Young. I refused to meet him. That one time I was like, I'm not going to do it. Right? It's really because they mean so much to you.
So will you not interview Neil Young?
No, I will interview him now because now I figured it out. This is back like 10 years ago.
Okay.
Now I figured out my way through it. But yeah, man, in the beginning it's like, oh, I don't know how. I really like these guys a lot. I don't want this to go bad. I interviewed somebody and it was kind of crappy. And I was really bummed after the interview. I was like, nah, man.
Yeah.
Skid Row, man. I loved Skid Row. When I interviewed Sebastian Bach and he was a dick, I was like, it sucks.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I didn't look up to them at all. I just enjoyed the music. But I'm really hesitant about going up meeting somebody like that.
What would you say to somebody like my father, somebody that's super religious and they feel they can no longer enjoy things like music because of their religion? Like for me personally, I respect my father, and even what he did, I respect it because he's standing for something that makes him feel better and that he believes in.
Yeah, you gotta do
so
what
at
you
the end of the
gotta
day,
do.
that's good for you. But I didn't see a reason why he couldn't at least have given the records to somebody. But I asked him like that, why didn't you give them to me if you don't want them? And he said to me, he's like, why would I put a burden that I don't want in my life on my son?
Yeah. I mean, that's it. That's legit, right?
Right.
There's nothing I can say to your old man. It's like nothing I could say to my mom's, right? It's just like, you have to be the best version of you.
Yeah.
And whatever that could be. What I would have implored your father beforehand is to see God's work in them. If they believe that God breathes talent into others, if they believe that, then certainly, like if there is a God, certainly God talked to the Beatles and taught them how to write those melodies. Right? So you can see, to a Christian, I would say, if you believe in the Lord, then the Lord's work is everywhere. It's on them records too.
Right.
You know, but that's honestly, they also believe that the devil works. So he probably thought it was but oh God, that's heartbreaking to me.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give you a couple scenarios.
Yeah.
And I want you to tell me which song ideally you would play during each scenario.
Okay.
So the first one is driving.
Yeah.
What do you ideally love to play when you're driving?
Well, it's a good question, but it's really complicated, right?
You can give me either a genre.
Yeah.
Or you can give me a specific song.
But what time of the day are we talking?
You tell me.
There's a lot of factors. To me, it's not.
Okay.
It's not cut and dry, right? Is it 2 o'clock in the morning? Am I on a road trip or am I coming home from in my own city? So if I'm coming home from, I'm out with my friends and I'm driving home. It's 4 in the morning on a Saturday night, and I'm usually listening. These days, I'm listening to black metal. I'm listening to death metal, a lot of that these days, some really heavy, aggressive stuff.
Yeah.
If it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm on a road trip to Los Angeles, I'm not. I'm generally, at that time of the night, I'm listening to almost exclusively Roger Waters' solo work.
Okay.
Almost exclusively. 2 in the afternoon, on a road trip, probably listening to the Rolling Stones, probably listening to Spiritualized. So to me, I break it down by where the sun is in the sky. You know, I have a lot of factors play into how I listen to music.
Okay. When you're in bed and you're having trouble sleeping.
So here's the factor there. It depends on where my mind is at. If I'm in a good space and I'm cool being awake and I'm just sort of chilling, I listen to Beethoven and I listen to Mozart and Bach. I listen to classics. Okay. And I sit there because I hear it. I mean, I know it because I was trained playing it, but I don't know it the way I know, Zeppelin. So I always hear new things in it. But if I'm stressed or a little bit anxious or whatever, that doesn't make it any easier for me.
Okay.
Then I listen to sounds of nature, man.
Yeah?
Oh, I have this iPad app and I bring up the breeze a little bit.
That's great. I love the rain.
I love the rain, man. And you have this one where you can adjust the volume of each and you can construct your own stuff.
Right.
I listen to that.
What do you listen to when you're prepping to make a public speech or a public appearance somewhere?
The Who.
Okay.
Yeah, I listen to The Who.
Your girlfriend just broke up with you.
I'm usually happy when that happens, though, because then I don't got to be the bad guy.
Okay.
And I'm free. So if my girlfriend breaks up with me,
it's a happy song.
It's a happy song. Now, if I need to get my, as Stella did, if I need to get my groove back.
Yeah. That's the next one.
Is it? Yeah. Well, if I'm just broken up, I listen to Rancid.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're at a party.
Yeah.
And you meet a girl, you bring her back to your place to have fun.
Yeah. So music to fuck to, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, it depends on the girl, man.
Yeah?
Yeah. Depends. If she's cool and funny and she's down and all that stuff.
Yeah.
If I tell you the answer, you won't believe me.
Okay, let's hear it.
America's Most Wanted, Ice Cube. Full on. Full on. If she's cool.
That's great.
If she's cool. Now, I mean, if she's down with that kind of stuff.
Right.
If not, if it's more of a passionate sort of whatever, the Black Keys.
Okay.
Yeah, the Black Keys.
The last one would be At Your Eulogy.
When I'm dead?
Yeah.
Ben Harper, Ground on Now. Or Spiritualized, Shine a Light.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or...
There's a few. It's hard.
It's really hard, man. It depends, right? I think that...
It's like picking the song that defines you.
Right, and I don't think that there is one.
Right.
But I think it's Shine a Light by Spiritualized, which might be one of my favorite songs of all time.